I've been driving the highways of Texas for 17 years, and I've learned a simple rule. When a place seems forgotten even on the map, it's because someone wants it to stay that way. That Tuesday, I was towing a dry van loaded with auto parts from San Antonio to Lubbock. It was almost 11 p.m. when I passed my usual rest stop because the rest area was packed, and I hate being squeezed into a parking space. The traffic on I-20 had turned into a desert, and the engine roar was already starting to lull me to sleep the wrong way. That's when I saw an old, peeling sign reflecting the headlight. Gas, food, restaurant. An arrow pointed to an exit I didn't even remember existed. The GPS showed nothing but a gray line. No marked posts, no restaurants, no restrooms. I should have gone straight ahead. But I needed to stretch my legs and wash my face, and the temptation of, "I'll be right back in 5 minutes," won out. The service road looked like it hadn't received new asphalt since the 1990s. The headlights swept through tall grass and potholes, and within a few meters the highway lights were left behind. The gas station suddenly appeared, pushed out of the darkness, a large parking lot for trucks, a convenience store, 2 diesel pumps, an attached snack bar. But it was dead. Faded sign, darkened windows, a crooked pole with a broken light fixture. Still, I saw 3 cars near the entrance and a faint yellowish light flashing inside. I drove in slowly and parked further back, in a spot that would allow me to drive straight out if I needed to. I turned off the engine and the silence hit me like a slap. Only wind in the grass and the distant creak of my trailer's metal cooling down. I grabbed the flashlight, went downstairs, and smelled old diesel mixed with dust. The shop door was unlocked. When I pushed it, an old bell tinkled faintly. Inside, the lighting was poor and the shelves were half empty. The snack bar next door was dark, with chairs overturned on top of the tables. In the corner, a security camera with a cut wire hung down. On the floor, there were black scratches that looked like tire tracks, as if something heavy had been pushed there. Behind the counter, a thin man emerged, unshaven, his cap pulled down over his eyes. He glanced at me quickly without sympathy or surprise. I pointed to the back, asking about the bathroom. He just nodded. In the hallway, the restrooms sign was crooked. The bathroom light came on late. I did what I needed to do and washed my hands. That's when I heard outside a short, repetitive sound. Metal hitting metal intermittently, like someone testing a chain. Ding, ding, ding. I left the bathroom quickly, but without running. The man behind the counter was no longer there. The store seemed even emptier. When I pushed the door open and stepped back into the wind, I saw 2 guys near the back of my trailer. Too close. Arms raised, fiddling with the door. I walked towards them with my flashlight pointed at them. "Hey, is there a problem?" They turned around, one with a hood, face hidden, the other shorter in a light jacket. The light caught the shorter one's hand, a large pair of bolt cutters. The lock on my trailer already had fresh scratches. My cell phone in my pocket felt like it weighed a ton. I tried dialing 911 without looking. No signal. The last bar disappeared. Before going upstairs, I noticed something else that made me even more alert. The cars near the entrance didn't look like customer cars. One of them had its hood slightly open, as if it had overheated and been left there. Another was missing its rear license plate. And the third had a dented side covered in dried mud, like a vehicle that drives on a dirt road, not a highway. None of this proves a crime, but along with the cut camera and the dangling wire, it was the complete picture of a place that didn't want to be tracked. I looked back at the trailer door and my head ran a quick calculation. Cargo of auto parts is easy money, and many people imagine that truck drivers are distracted, tired, and alone. They count on that. They count on the guy getting out, asking for help, arguing, doing the right thing. And they count above all on the guy having no one to call. I felt a cold rage. It wasn't bravery. It was the indignation of knowing I had been chosen because someone thought I was an easy target. In the small mirror above the windshield, I saw my tired face and noticed the flashlight in my hand trembling slightly. I clenched my fingers tightly until it stopped. I took one long breath and scanned the patio before climbing up. The pumps were off, but there was a fresh smell of spilled diesel on the concrete, as if someone had refueled shortly before. Near the snack bar, a dumpster was open, and I saw torn cardboard boxes, labels ripped off. In the corner of the parking lot where weeds were beginning to encroach, there were skid marks ending in a dark spot on the asphalt. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't want to find out. When I climbed up and locked the cabin, I pulled the curtain back for just a second to check if anyone was trying to get in from the passenger side. Nothing. I refocused on what mattered, getting out of there with the cargo intact and my body safe. I turned on the interior light and saw what I needed to see. My pocket knife in the console, my pepper spray in the glove compartment, and the wooden block I use to jam the door from the inside when I sleep in unfamiliar places. It wasn't for fighting. It was to buy seconds. I started the engine, turned on the high beams and fog lights, and let the air brakes charge. The sound of the compressor filling the system seemed too loud in that silence. Outside, the guy in the hood made a quick movement, as if he were talking to someone I couldn't see. And I understood that it wasn't two guys improvising. It was a group. The one in the hood took 2 steps toward me, slowly, as if he were in no hurry. I didn't argue. I didn't threaten. I simply decided that was the point where I stopped acting like a customer and started acting like a driver. I went to the driver's side door, climbed in, and locked it. The engine started with a familiar roar, but this time the sound came with panic. I put it in gear and started to pull out of the parking space. At the lighthouse near the entrance to the station, a third figure appeared, standing next to the crooked post. He was holding something long. When the light hit it, it gleamed. A crowbar. And on the ground across the yard exit, there was a thick chain stretched low at shin height. That wasn't improvisation. It was a trap. To force the truck to stop, get out, sort things out, and then become an easy target. I didn't have room to turn back without passing near the trailer again. And I saw, in the mirror, the 2 of them running towards the cabin, as if they knew I had understood. So I did what I had. Weight and momentum. I lined up for the exit and accelerated. I needed to get over it before the chain got caught on the bumper and trapped me at the gas station entrance. At the last second, I swerved the steering wheel slightly, trying to get the front wheel to catch the point where the chain seemed to be stuck on the asphalt. The impact shook the cabin. There was a sharp crack. The chain scraped against the metal like a fingernail against glass and flew off, sending sparks flying into the rearview mirror. The figure on the pole jumped back. Something hit my door, a loud bang, then another on the step. I didn't stop to understand. The rear wheel passed and the whole thing picked up speed. I was out of the yard, but the place didn't come loose easily. On the ramp, when I passed the current, I used the air horn long and sharp not to scare anyone, but to get the attention of anyone on the highway. The sound cut through the night and returned as a faint echo, as if the place itself swallowed the noise. The cars behind me reacted. The one on the left turned its headlights off and on like a code. The one behind kept its high beams on and started to get too close, the kind of closeness that isn't an accident, it's a test. I saw the glint of the hood in the rearview mirror and thought, they want me to brake. I stayed in the right lane and gave the truck room to breathe. If I braked hard with the load, I'd become a slow-moving wall in the dark. If I accelerated too much, I risked being hit by crosswinds and the weight of the trailer. Balance there was a matter of life and death. The car on the left tried one last thing. It pulled alongside again and swerved its front end inward as if to enter my lane. A short movement, just enough to make me react. I didn't react. I held my line firmly and let the truck's sheer size tell me no. It gave up and backed away. When they took the next exit, I didn't celebrate. I waited because people like that sometimes come back at the next exit to try and catch you slowing down. So I drove another 20 miles without reducing my pace until I saw a sea of lights and trucks where any pursuit becomes a bad idea. At the truck stop, I stood for a long time staring at the door of my trailer, running my hand over the scratches, just to make sure it was still mine. The anger came later, along with the bitter feeling that I had almost fallen into a trap for something as basic as a bathroom. And the worst part is that I know I wasn't the first. These places exist because someone, at some point, managed to make them work. The old sign, the dim light, the cars stopped in front. It's all part of the scenery. It's designed to make the tired driver think there are people inside and lower their guard. It's meant to make you trade speed for courtesy. And on the road, courtesy doesn't protect you. On the service road before the bend that leads back to I-20, I saw headlights turn on behind me. One car, then another. Two low vehicles pulling out of the parking lot and coming up fast. I still had no signal, no route, nothing but a dark road and the instinct to not let anyone overtake me. I maintained just enough speed to avoid losing stability, and I aimed for the uphill slope as if it were a harbor. They came close. One came from my left and flashed its headlights, trying to distract me to get my attention. The other stuck behind me, high beams to blind me. I didn't look at them. I looked ahead. Trucks don't forgive mistakes in focus. When I pulled onto I-20, I saw a truck ahead far away, but it was there. It was present. It was a witness. I flashed my high beams twice, an instinctive warning. I don't know if he understood, but the simple fact of having another vehicle on the road changed the game. The cars hesitated. They backed away. At the next exit, they disappeared. I continued for another 20 miles before stopping at a large, stadium-lit truck stop in the middle of dozens of semi-trucks. I left the engine running for a while, just to let the noise remind me that I was back in a normal place. So from the phone at the gas station, I reported everything. The voice on the other end listened silently, asked questions, and took notes. When I described the exit and the gas station, there was no surprise. They said the place hadn't officially operated for years, but it still attracted trouble, and truckers who prefer to forget rather than remember. I haven't forgotten. Even today, when I see an old sign promising gas and food at an exit that GPS pretends doesn't exist, I remember the sound of the chain, tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. I remember the sparks on the mirror. And I remember what terrified me most, even more than the pliers and the crowbar. The silence of the place, as if the entire gas station were on their side, just waiting for me to get out of the truck again. If you're enjoying these chilling stories, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any more terrifying tales to come. Now, get ready for another journey down dark and mysterious roads. I saw the blue light on the shoulder of the road and didn't brake. At that hour of the early morning in West Texas, a lone light on the side of the road means two things: real trouble or bait. I was carrying dry cargo, had plenty of time, and was on the kind of stretch of road I knew like the back of my hand. Even so, my body warned me before my head. The radio had gone silent a few miles earlier, as if someone had turned down the volume of the world. And the air was heavy like a storm that never seems to arrive. I passed the light, and the second the headlight swept across the shoulder of the road, I understood why. It wasn't a police car. It was a low-mounted, rotating beacon attached to something that looked like a toolbox. The flashing pattern was too perfect, too clean, like construction equipment, not emergency equipment. Next to it, a man stood there. Cowboy hat, dark jacket, arms straight. He didn't wave, didn't ask for help, didn't signal. He just stood there motionless as if he had been left there on purpose. I followed. In the rearview mirror, the blue light grew smaller and then disappeared. 2 minutes later, my dashboard flickered. It didn't go completely dark, but it gave that punch of energy you feel in your stomach. The radio crackled, the fuel gauge trembled and then returned. Engine normal, trailer running smoothly. I took a breath and forced my mind to get back to work. Then my phone turned on in its holder all by itself. No ringtone, no vibration, just a white screen and the map recalculating the route, insisting on a detour, County Road 118. I knew that road. It was a farm road, sandy, full of potholes, the kind of place where a truck disappears and nobody finds it. I pressed the button to cancel. It froze for half a second and went back to the same detour, as if it were faster. I turned off my phone and threw it in the storage compartment. In the rearview mirror, a headlight appeared, tall, bright, from a large pickup truck. Far enough away not to bother me, close enough to remind me that I wasn't alone. I signaled, made room to overtake. The headlight didn't come through. I slowed down a little, then accelerated. The light behind me remained at the same distance, in the same way, without changing. Anyone who drives at night knows. A real car's headlight dances. It goes up, down, gets closer, disappears. It seemed stuck on me. As the road grew darker, I saw an object in the middle of the lane. Dark, low. I didn't have time to understand. I just corrected slightly to the side without swerving the truck and felt a sharp jolt in the suspension. A hollow snap as if I had crushed something that wasn't a rock. I cursed to myself and kept going. The sign appeared. County Road 118. Exit in half a mile. I hadn't left. I hadn't taken a detour. I was going straight. My stomach clenched. I looked back at the road, at the mile marker, at the moonless sky. The feeling was simple and absurd, as if the road had turned and placed me back near the same spot. The radio came back for a second and a choppy voice came in. No music, no station. Just the phrase amidst the static. If you see blue light, don't stop. He died. Total silence. Between the second sign and the second flashing light, the road seemed to have lost depth. My truck's headlights illuminated the area, but the darkness didn't recede as it should. It simply swallowed everything else like a black sheet. I began to notice details I never notice when I'm feeling well. The faded center line, the rubber dust on the shoulder, a smell of wet earth that didn't match the dry air. I tried talking on the truck radio, on the channel that always has someone awake. Anyone on 285? I'm having a problem here. Just static. I turned the dial, searched for another frequency. Static. Then a short click and a breath. Not a voice. Breath, slow, as if the microphone were open on the other end. I released the button, and the sound stopped. I pressed it again just to test, and the same breath came. The skin on my arm came off completely. The pickup truck behind me got close enough for me to see a detail on its grille. It didn't have a front license plate. Or it did. And it was covered. The headlight was too modern for that stretch of road, white and hard. And for some reason it never illuminated the ground properly. Only my rearview mirror, only my cabin, as if the goal was to make me uncomfortable, to prevent me from seeing. When the blue light appeared again, I swear my first thought was that I was going in circles, that I had dozed off without realizing it and come back. But I wasn't tired to that extent. I was too alert. It was the kind of alertness that causes pain behind the eye, that makes you clench your teeth. I passed the man with the blank face and, soon after, saw a dirt entrance on the right, a small service road with an open gate. I considered going in just to move the truck out of the way and buy some time. But I'd seen people fall into traps like that before. They go in, lose traction, and stop. And stopping was the one thing I couldn't do. I kept going straight ahead, with the bad tire and my whole body telling me that the next thing was going to be worse. The headlight behind me got closer. I could already see the outline of the hood through the glare. Big pickup truck, tinted windows. No hurry. Like someone who knows you have nowhere to go. I kept the truck moving and scanned the shoulder with my eyes. And there was the blue light again, as if waiting for me. The same low flashing light, the same man standing there. Only now there was something on the ground near his foot, a thick chain or steel cable stretched towards the road. I didn't think. I held my line and passed without touching him. As I passed by, the man turned his head too slowly. The spotlight caught his face and my brain froze. I couldn't make out any details. It was like a featureless face, pale, smooth, expressionless, with no eyes I could find. It didn't look like a mask. It didn't look like paint. It looked like absence. My whole body urged me to speed up. I obeyed. That's when the truck's tire blew out. It wasn't a big explosion. It was a dry thud and a vibration that went up through the structure. I held the steering wheel, didn't let it pull, and slowed down calmly. The truck was still responding, but I knew that some nail, some bar, something had caught my tires. And I understood the object on the asphalt from before. It wasn't trash. It was placed there. A path of small traps to tire me out, force me to correct myself, slow me down. The pickup truck behind me honked once, briefly, a warning. Then it moved to the left, trying to pull alongside. I saw its reflection in the side of my tank. High body, tinted windows, high beams ready to blind me. In the driver's seat, I could only see a dark outline. No face. I tried calling 911. The phone lit up, displayed the number, and went dead the moment I pressed call. as if the battery had been ripped out. I felt a cold rage because it wasn't just fear, it was humiliation, being treated like prey. Further on the shoulder of the road, a silhouette appeared in my lane. Hat, jacket, standing in the middle of the road, back turned, just like the man from the lamppost. I honked loudly. Nothing. The pickup truck behind me flashed its high beams, and my rearview mirror turned into a sunburst. If I braked hard, it could hit me. If I swerved too much, I'd lose control of the truck. If I stopped, that's what they wanted. I held on tight, maintained the line, and passed. At the last instant, I saw that it wasn't a whole man. It was a jacket and a hat mounted on a stand, like a scarecrow. And where there should have been a face, there was a pale sack held together with tape. It slammed against my railing and was ripped away by the wind with a sound of tearing fabric. And above the engine noise, I heard something inside the cabin. It wasn't coming from the radio. It wasn't coming from the road. It was too close, as if someone were speaking from the passenger seat, in a low, dry voice. "Now you stop." I glanced to the side at the reflection in the glass. The seat was empty, but the passenger's seat belt was stretched taut, pulled tight as if someone's chest was trapped there. My blood turned to ice. I gripped the steering wheel until it hurt and said aloud, more to myself than anything else, "I'm not going to stop." The seatbelt slowly loosened, and a smell of damp cloth and rust filled the cabin, like clothes stored in a wet place. A gas station light appeared in the distance, small, yellow, flickering on the horizon. A real light. I accelerated as fast as I could with the bad tire. The truck vibrated, complained, but responded. When I pulled into the gas station parking lot, I didn't turn off the engine. I stopped in a way that allowed me to get out quickly. I got out and went straight to the store door because I needed people, a camera, anything. The attendant was an old, thin man with a worn-out cap. He looked at me as if I had arrived at the time indicated on an old notice. I simply said, "There's a pickup truck and a blue light on the road." He didn't ask where. He only asked, "Did you pass by her?" I froze. Before I could answer, I heard the doorbell ring by itself, just once, with no one coming in. I turned around. Outside, on the other side of the glass, someone stood looking inside. Hat, jacket. A pale, featureless face that I couldn't make out. And behind him, at the edge of the courtyard, the blue light blinked in the same perfect rhythm. The old man didn't look. He spoke softly, as if he didn't want to give his name. "Ignore it. Get on. Drive away. And don't look in the rearview mirror until you're in the city." I got back to the truck without running, because running is admitting your prey. I climbed in, locked the door, and put the car in gear. When I left the gas station, I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't look. I drove until I saw the lights of a real city, with traffic, illuminated signs, and movement. Only then did I stop in a large yard with a camera and other trucks. I got out to see the damage to the front of my truck. Stuck in the fence between metal and plastic was a piece of fabric tied in a knot. It was a thin identification tag, like those used for identification, with a number printed on it like a hospital wristband. And on it was a phrase written in pen, crooked handwriting, as if someone had written it in the dark. "You passed by twice." I stood there staring, trying to understand. I hadn't gone back. I hadn't made a U-turn. I hadn't left the track. But my body knew. That morning in Texas, someone, or something, turned the corner just to make me cross the blue light again, just to test how many times I could resist. As we left the city, when I finally allowed myself a quick glance in the rearview mirror, I didn't see any headlights, just the empty road. Even so, I heard a soft click in the seatbelt buckle next to me, like metal meeting metal, like someone adjusting their position so the journey could continue. When I got back into the cabin and closed the door, I felt the passenger's seatbelt stretch a little, as if someone were still there, sitting with me, waiting for me to get tired. I had driven all over Texas more times than I can count. The Panhandle, the plains near Amarillo, the emptiness between Lubbock and Midland, the gas stations that all look the same. Those who live on the road learn to gauge danger by silence. And that morning, the silence carried weight. I left El Paso with a sealed shipment and all the paperwork in order, destined for further east. Nothing luxurious, nothing flashy. My truck wasn't flashy either, just well-maintained as it should be when your life depends on every hose and every screw. Weak coffee, low radio volume, headlights cutting through the darkness, and the clock reminding me that the delivery window is unforgiving. The first thing that bothered me was a car stopped on the shoulder of the road way ahead, without a warning triangle, without anything. Normal, you might think. But Texas is too big for me to ignore coincidences. I flashed my high beams for a second. I saw two details that didn't match a breakdown. The hood was closed and the person next to the car wasn't in a hurry. They stood there, motionless, as if waiting. I drove straight past. I didn't honk. I didn't roll down the window. I just kept the image in my head. The road became empty again, and for a while nothing happened. Even so, I didn't relax. My chest still had that feeling that the world had tilted a little. Almost 20 minutes later, lights flashing in the rearview mirror. At first I thought it was a patrol car, but the lights weren't following a clean, regular pattern. It was a disorganized rotation, red and blue alternating too quickly, like those cheap traffic lights. And the vehicle was right behind me, too close for that speed. I stayed in my lane, firmly. The car pulled up alongside me on the left, and I saw it was a dark pickup truck, one of those that swallowed the night. On the window, a sticker trying to imitate the DPS seal. The light bar looked newly installed. In the passenger seat, someone pointed a flashlight directly at me, trying to blind me. With a loaded truck, you can't perform miracles. I did what an experienced trucker does when he smells a trap. I looked for a way out without becoming prey. But it was a long stretch of darkness, with no access, no town. The pickup truck pulled in front of me and slowed down. I lifted my foot off the gas to avoid tailgating. It slowed down even more. I lightly touched the brake. Then, out of nowhere, the driver swerved onto the shoulder and disappeared, as if he had given up. I thought it was over. But there's no such thing as over on an empty road in the middle of the night. I gripped the steering wheel and kept my eyes peeled for information. On the right shoulder, a few meters ahead, there were orange cones. Cones in the middle of nowhere. And right after, a trestle with a poorly painted, crooked, road-closed sign. There was no construction truck, no real signage, just those makeshift cones. Behind them, a car was parked across the road, just like the first one I had seen. It was a trap in my lane. I slowed down enough to assess the situation. That's the moment when many people make a mistake. They stop to help, or to negotiate the fare. And that's when the problem gets in your truck with you. I wasn't going to stop. I signaled to turn left just to gain some angle, and kept the truck moving slowly, trying to squeeze between the cones. When I got close, the headlights caught the glare of something on the asphalt. Metal strips, the kind that puncture tires. My stomach churned. I carefully steered, trying to avoid the spike strip. There was no way to swerve with a long trailer. If I drove over it, I'd lose tires and control. If I braked and stayed there, I'd become a stationary target. They had forced me into a bad decision. The instant my speed decreased, I saw movement in the dark to my right. 2, 3 figures. One of them was holding something long. Another was wearing a reflective vest, to look official. They were hiding behind the sideways car, waiting for me to become vulnerable. Fear crept up my neck, but I wouldn't let it control me. I needed space, and I had something they didn't. Resources. I aligned the truck with the rear of the car across the road and at the last second accelerated as much as I could. The impact was dull and brutal, metal against metal, the car being pushed as if it were too light. My cabin shook, the seatbelt locked. The truck gave a jolt that almost threw me against the dashboard, but I made it through. In the mirror, I saw the figures running. An arm went up and I saw a short flash, like a gunshot in the dark, exploding behind me. The sound came afterward, dry. I cowered but kept the truck straight. If I overturned, I would die right there. The fake pickup truck reappeared, now right behind me, its lights flashing. Further back, another car followed, a sedan without its high beams. They had a team, and now I was on the run. After I pushed the car sideways, I immediately felt that something was wrong underneath. It wasn't a tire blowout, but it was that slight tug in the steering, as if the suspension had given out. I heard a creaking sound in the axle and decided that if I got out of that situation alive, I would check everything at the first safe place. The truck pulled up alongside me again and started playing the oldest game on the road, getting closer, moving away, swerving to the side as if to make contact, just to see if I would falter. I kept the steering wheel as steady as possible. Trucks have a memory. If you correct too much, they start to wobble. I focused on the white markers at the edge of the road, one after the other, as if they were rails. The sedan alternated between high and low beams, confusing my vision. The reflection in the mirror cut my eye. I adjusted the mirror slightly and started looking with my head, not my instincts. Losing track of what was behind me was an invitation to be cut off. I tried the cabin radio, calling anyone on the frequency, just static. I pressed the button more times than made sense, as if persistence would turn into a signal. Nothing. I was alone in that stretch of road, and they knew it. The pickup truck tried to brake me. It pulled in front of me and slowed down sharply, letting its rear end sway as if it wanted me to pull over and tip over. I didn't react. I released the accelerator, let the truck sit without locking, and increased the distance. On the shoulder, I saw a shadow running parallel for a few meters. It couldn't have been a pedestrian there. It was someone from the team confirming if I was going to stop. My whole body wanted to panic, but I had an old routine for that. Micro tasks. Check left mirror. Check right mirror. Measure distance. Take one long breath. Repeat. This keeps the mind in the present and prevents you from becoming a statistic. I noticed the details for later. The sedan had a dent in the rear fender. The pickup truck had a taillight taped to the dashboard. The DPS sticker was too big and crooked. Small signs of improvisation. Small signs that it was all a staged scene to isolate me. Even with the lead, they tried one last move. The sedan came from the right, so close to the shoulder it kicked up dust. The window rolled down and an arm appeared, pointing at something that reflected for a second. I didn't wait to find out what it was. I kept the truck in the center of the lane and didn't give them any swerve. If I swerved to the right, I'd fall onto the dirt and lose traction. If I swerved to the left, I'd become a target for the pickup truck. My world became a narrow line of asphalt and the obligation not to give them a single inch. When the light from the gas station began to appear on the horizon, I felt relief, but also a bitter certainty. They did this as a job. I searched for a cell phone signal. Nothing. That part of Texas is full of dead zones, and they knew it. I needed a plan that didn't depend on calling for help. Light, people, a camera. I remembered a 24-hour gas station further ahead, one of those big ones with truck parking and bright lighting. I kept the truck within the safe limits without accelerating so much that I lost control, and without slowing down so much that they would pull over. The outpost appeared like an island. First a glimmer on the horizon, then the tall sign, then the line of light that seemed to save the night. And it was precisely there that they became more aggressive. The pickup truck cut across diagonally, trying to block the entrance. The sedan tried to cut off my access to the deceleration lane. They wanted me to go straight through, back into the darkness. I pulled into the parking lot however I could without a perfect angle, using the weight of the truck as an excuse. I went up a little onto the painted line, felt the trailer sway, heard the tires screech. I went in. As soon as my wheels touched the light asphalt of the parking lot, I honked long and loudly, a sound that pierces glass in sleep. I stopped near the pumps where there were cameras, where there were people. I saw 2 truck drivers turn their heads and an employee come out of the door, already alert. The pickup truck and the sedan braked suddenly outside at the entrance, as if they had hit an invisible wall. A man got out wearing a reflective vest and took a few steps inside, still trying to maintain the charade. I didn't get out. I didn't open the door. I locked everything. I picked up my cell phone again. This time, a trace of signal appeared, weak, but sufficient. I called 911 with a trembling hand and quickly recounted: fake roadblock, vehicles impersonating police, gunshots, location of the gas station. The man in the vest looked around and realized he now had a witness. He turned around. The pickup truck and the sedan backed up and disappeared down the highway, seemingly without haste, as if trying to pretend nothing had happened. The police arrived shortly after. I showed them the video of what I managed to record. The model, the fake sticker, the partial license plate. I told them about the cones, the road closed sign, and the strip of spikes. The policeman wrote everything down, with a calmness that made me nauseous. He didn't seem surprised. I got back on the road when the sun began to streak across the horizon. I still had a delivery to make. I still had a deadline. But I drove the rest of the way with one certainty clinging to me. The road doesn't become dangerous when something appears out of nowhere. It becomes dangerous when something appears in the right way, at the right time, to make you act automatically. Since that early morning, I haven't stopped for a false light. I don't slow down for a cone in the middle of nowhere. I keep going until I see the real light. Because in Texas, in the darkness, there are people who are always waiting for you to make the wrong choice. When I finally pulled over to a safe parking lot hours later, I noticed my hands were still stiff on the steering wheel, as if I no longer knew how to let go. I got out, looked at the asphalt around the tire, listened to the metal cooling, and only then did I understand how close I had come. If you want more stories like this, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.